Did you know that 82 million households tuned into at least one episode of Bridgerton on Netflix the first month it was available? And did you know that Bridgerton is based on a romance novel series by Julia Quinn? Lots of people who have never picked up a romance novel before are dipping in as a result of the Netflix adaptation. If you are one of those people who don't identify as a romance reader, but decided to read one or more of the Bridgerton novels as a result of watching the show, I am asking for your help. That's right, you. My name is Andrea Martucci, and I'm currently working on a research project to discover how Bridgerton fans are engaging with romance novels and how they perceive the romance fiction genre. I am the host of a podcast devoted to unpacking romance novels called Shelf Love Podcast. What I want to understand is how people get into romance, or don't, and how new readers perceive genre conventions. So here's how you can take part in this research project. I have a survey that probably just takes about 5 minutes to fill out. You can find the survey and learn more about the research project by going to bit.ly/Bridgerton Research. That's bit.ly/Bridgerton Research. You can also find more information on my website, shelflovepodcast.com. Thank you so much for helping with this project. I really appreciate you. That link one more time is bit.ly/Bridgerton Research.
Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath, the podcast that explores the movies that influenced how we view love and romantic relationships. Yes, there will be spoilers. I'm your host, Diana Rojek-Sconard. I don't like to do what people expect. Why should I live up to other people's expectations instead of my own? We're here to talk about 10 Things I Hate About You from 1999. I'm very excited to welcome Andrea Martucci from Shelf Love Podcast. Hello.
Hello, Diana. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you so much for joining me.
I am really excited to be here. HEAs are kind of my thing.
Oh my goodness. So I am relatively new to the romance community, but just in case, HEA, well, hold on, what am I talking about? That is my own podcast name. Wow, I wish I could cut that out, but that's just too good to not. Anywho, I'm so like thrown into HEAM, and I don't even process it anymore. So thank you for pointing out how tired I am this morning. Oh my goodness. Okay, so 10 Things I Hate About You. This is the movie you said you wanted to talk about. So for those who are unfamiliar, you are in for a treat, but at the same time, I want to point out that this is a movie, it's based off of The Taming of the Shrew, so I don't want to use that as a shorthand, so pulling from the internet, the Google search, the description of it is, so Kat Stratford, Julia Stiles, is beautiful, smart, and quite abrasive to most of her fellow teens. And I'm going to continue with what they wrote, meaning that she doesn't attract many boys, but okay, that's all right. Unfortunately for her younger sister, Bianca, Larisa Oleynik, house rules states that she can't date until Kat has a boyfriend, so strings are pulled to set the dour damsel up for a romance. There is a continuation. Soon Kat crosses paths with handsome new arrival Patrick Verona. Will Kat let her guard down fall for the effortlessly charming Patrick? So they're never good enough.
Charming?
Okay,
that's weird.
The movie stars Heath Ledger, the aforementioned Julia Stiles, and Larisa Oleynik, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which I'll put a small pin in that for later. And also, I think we should. Okay, so it's. Dang it, it's such a complicated tale, and yet it's like a high school rom-com, so I don't want to get too far into it. But so quick shout-outs to David Krumholtz, Andrew Keegan, Susan May Pratt, Gabrielle Union, Larry Mitchell, Daryl Mitchell, and Allison Janney, who has to get the "and" credit in there because of her amazingness. Oh, that was a lot of words coming out. So I would like to ask you specifically, what made you choose this movie?
Okay, so what a time for teen high school rom-coms. The late 90s, the early 2000s.
Right.
All of the options that I sent to you, I believe, are from about like an 8-year period. Oh, and one of them might have been from the 80s, but most of them were from that sort of golden age, at least in my opinion, of teen rom-coms. And it probably is the golden age to me because I was like in middle school, high school, early college at that time. I'm a millennial, so just to nail down how old I am. I'm 34. You can calculate what grade I was in. So wait, 99. I would have been in 8th grade, maybe.
Okay, very impressionable times.
Yes. Okay. So I think that this movie in particular is just burned into my memory.
Okay.
As it feels like exactly the kind of thing that would have really resonated with me at the time that I watched it. And I don't think I watched it like in 8th grade when it came out. I think I probably watched it in high school. But
got it.
I think that it really, Kat resonates as a main character because she's kind of countercultural and she's really questioning a lot of the systemic issues that she's struggling with. And it's also just an incredibly fun movie. And
yeah, go ahead.
And it's a movie where two grumpy people fall in love and neither of them necessarily becomes less grumpy or more conforming to cultural ideals.
Right. Right. And that's actually really important to underline that because this isn't about she, finds love and therefore she is now blank. It is they have come together, their own individual grumpy, as you had mentioned, which, in rewatching this, I was fascinated. It's like I remembered the plot points, but I didn't remember the feelings. So I got to re-feel in a different way as an adult versus, I actually can't remember the first time I watched it, but I think I was actually after high school. So kind of like you, it had come out, but it was like a couple of it didn't catch my attention initially for one reason or another. And so therefore time to rewatch. So yeah, so please continue. It's, you're probably watching this in high school if it didn't catch you when it came out?
Yeah, probably in high school. And I remember how I had first seen it. You know how a lot of times movies will have these companion branded books that come out?
Yes.
So I believe the movie film production company had this branded like 10 Things I Hate About You cover. And I can't remember. Must have been some sort of like, it was a very tiny book, some sort of like fictionalized or like high level like plot summary, but in novel form.
Yeah.
And this cool girl at school had this book in her locker. And so I immediately associated it with kind of like, oh, cool people like this. And also I remember, I think it was like Teen Magazine or some teen magazine at the time had like ads for it. And I was very into like tearing out things that looked cool at the time and putting them in binders. I've always been very into binders. And collecting knowledge. And I feel like the aesthetics of it were like there in my brain. And then eventually I watched it and I don't think I watched it with anybody. I think I might have bought the DVD and watched it on my own or with my family. And it's just such an inventive movie. And I think I maybe was a little bit worried / not worried that when I watched it again now, it has been a while since I watched it. I was like, oh no, what if this doesn't hold up?
Right. Always a concern of me rewatching these things.
But honestly, if anything, I think I enjoyed it even more now because some of the things made more sense, or I was maybe more attuned to them just being older and a little bit more knowledgeable about film and genre conventions and tropes and all of that.
Absolutely. Okay. No, that's kind of amazing. So, on rewatch, is there anything in particular you thought you had remembered that may not hold up on the rewatch, or is it just like you came in blank? It's just like, ooh, this might not hold up, and then you hit play and then just let it play out.
I'm not sure. I think that what I remembered was the soundtrack was great. I definitely... Did you have the CD?
I didn't, but keep going.
Okay, I totally had the CD, and because music was harder to come by in those days...
Of course.
I listened to the CD a million times. It is burned into my memory, and I very much associated that with this movie. And there are so many lines that I like quote still to this day. So, like cat.
So that one tickled me. It really shouldn't have, but yet delivery, amazing, visual. Thank you, Allison Janney. I thought it was fantastic. Additionally, I was actually thinking about now, she was probably in the middle of The West Wing while that was happening. And so I'm just like, so I know her as, Academy Award winning, appearing in things, making them better, and then, not necessarily being the star of them. So I was curious if there was more in that movie that didn't have her. And if you watch the end credits with the bloopers, clearly there was, because I really felt that they didn't use her enough. And so I actually started looking for deleted scenes on YouTube, and YouTube did not help out as much as I would have appreciated. But
Ms. Perky,
no, totally.
Actually, so Ms. Perky, who is played by Allison Janney in the movie, is either working on a romance novel or an erotic novel at the time. So as somebody who has a podcast about romance novels, has been reading romance novels since that point in my life when I was originally watching this, because I've been reading them for a long time. I think that it's like delightful to see her represent that like archetype of a, the lady writing a romance novel. But she goes against the stereotype so much. And I think that as somebody who has always loved romance novels, that I always appreciated that was a part of her character. And now that I know even more about romance novels and the stereotypes about romance novelists, I appreciate that while she is writing a particular thing that is, it's played up for humorous effect, right? Like she's looking for different words for like male genitalia that are euphemistic and whatever. But she's kind of a bitch and a terrible guidance counselor. And I love that.
No, 100%. I'm just like, okay, Diana, remember, this is a comedy. So your actual opinions about this guidance counselor being a terrible guidance counselor is not as relevant as is this effective, in terms of comedy. And for me, it's like, I'm thinking about this way too hard. Just keep watching.
But usually, I think the stereotype of somebody writing a romance novel would be that she's like really empathetic and, really kind and like really trying to guide these kids.
Oh, fascinating. Go on.
And so that's why I like that she literally does not give a shit. She's just like trying to get through the day so that she can get back to the thing that she loves doing or wants to do. Maybe to escape being a guidance counselor, she's trying to write and sell this book.
Okay, so that's actually, again, rewatching this as an adult, it didn't even process with me because I immediately thought that as much as like romance, being a romance writer is what she wants to do. And the guidance counselor is this is what pays the bills until I can get there. That's so much more common now. I didn't even think about it back then. I don't even think I thought about it back then. It's just like, wow, this is really weird that she's writing a romance novel while she's trying to be a guidance counselor. Ooh, she's not good at this either. Being a guidance counselor, that is. And I don't even think about the archetype of a romance writer. I only think in terms of the stereotypes of a romance reader. So fascinating. I didn't realize that there were any romance writer archetypes.
Well, and all of this is super relevant to me now because I am literally doing research right now on stereotypes about romance readers.
Oh, wow.
So maybe it's just highly visible too.
But that's important because this is you rewatching this movie and all that you're thinking about now. No, this is what we're here to talk about. It's fantastic. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, other parts of it too, where it's just like watching them being high school students. And I read where it was happening. I guess it was in Washington, because it's very easy. It was very easy for me to assume that this was in Los Angeles. Just something about the colors and the way, the fact that everyone is just, ridiculously attractive. But then again, that's most teen movies. So I may have just missed the mark on that one entirely.
Did you? One thing I really enjoyed was I'm going to call them costumes, but the clothes the characters were wearing are so spot on for that time period. And obviously our main characters are dressed somewhat aspirationally for teenagers.
Yeah.
But the background characters just look exactly like the kinds of things that me and my friends and all the other normies were wearing in middle school and high school. And I actually noted that a lot of the background characters, there is a variety. They don't all look like they're all, aspiring movie stars, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like the variety of background characters is there's normal looking people. Obviously, the stars are ridiculously attractive.
Of course. No. And now that you mention it, one of the interesting, filming techniques or just something that I noticed is there was a lot of just panning and spinning and just outwardness of the high school itself, especially in the beginning when Cameron is getting his tour and you're seeing, well, of course they have the this is where we're going to explain to you what the cliques are, and then the cliques became the cowboy section, and I'm just like, oh wow, they're this is kind of hilarious right now. And of course I love seeing it lampooned in other movies. And then also I actually thought of Mean Girls as well, as the introduction of all that. And I'm just like, I'm fascinated by these these cliques that formed the young MBAs and the cowboys, and then the white
the white Rastafarians.
That's what I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, because I immediately plopped myself into Can't Hardly Wait, except he wasn't a Rastafarian. He was just, just a different version of that kind of thing, Seth Green's character. So I'm just like, oh my goodness. It's just, I'm processing it so hard right now in my 38-year-old brain, where I'm just like, just so much of it.
I feel like that is such that whole okay, new kid, let me give you the lay of the land. Here's the social landscape. Here are the groups and the cliques, and here's kind of here are the players. And I think that there's this really interesting framing device. So first of all, you are so right. There's some really interesting camera stuff going on in that scene that really is giving that feeling of, this is the lay of the land. Here is where we are.
Yeah.
This is a story kind of about the social dynamics of the people in this place. And there's a really interesting framing device where, since we're talking about, the happily ever aftermath, who is the main couple in this? I think we believe it is Patrick and Kat, but the couple or the relationship that is driving the action here it's Cameron and his pursuit of Bianca.
Yes, that is correct. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about it. Yes, Cameron is the driving force, is the new student who is just absolutely smitten with Bianca, sight unseen. Spoiler for my next answer for a different segment of this podcast. But it's true. It's, there is this rule set up by their father that, which I think I give tremendous props to the people who wrote this movie for putting a concept of Shakespeare written way back when and putting it in a modern lens of just women aren't the same version of property that they were back then when it was written. So how do we make this a modern thing? And the answer is the gynecologist father who is terrified of watching his two daughters, he's telling horror stories of the 15-year-old who he, delivered twins to. And, you know what she said? I should have listened to my father. And it's just
no, she didn't.
Well, I thought that, I'm pretty sure it came clear. It was.
He's reading between the lines there. But yes, I was thinking about that too. So I've never actually read The Taming of the Shrew or seen it performed, and I was looking up the plot of it, and I was like, ooh. Reading the plot, I was like, I see the broad strokes of it in 10 Things I Hate About You, but I think they did a really good job of translating the gist without leaning too hard into kind of the really period-specific misogyny of it.
Absolutely. And in fact, what's difficult about it is that I've seen other modern versions of it, and they tried to translate it, and I'm like, this still feels wrong. This still feels really, really off, and I really am not. I can't. It's when last time I looked up The Taming of the Shrew and remembering certain parts of it, I actually read it sophomore year, and I remember in very Cat Stratford fashion started railing in my essay about how horrible it was. Oh no, I'm sorry, I take that back. It wasn't even the full play. It was a scene. They put, it was the Elizabeth Taylor version of it, and I just went to town on it, and I got an A on it, but at the same time my teacher put, oh come on.
Dial it back a little. I think that what's interesting is that by making the father an obstetrician,
yes,
you can play with, like, why is he so obsessed with virginity and the purity or like the lack of sex with his daughters. And I think that what we are led to believe is, okay, look, he's seen a lot. He's seen like the ramifications of young people. This is what we're led to believe, of young people making decisions that then change the course of their life after this point based on like teen pants feelings. And he is, there's also something that I understood more as an adult, like what was the dynamic with their mother leaving, Kat and Bianca's mother leaving. And so there's a part where he's really just trying to control because he feels generally out of control. And he has already lost somebody he loves, and so he doesn't want to lose his daughters, and so he's trying to micromanage their lives and their relationships and not trusting them to make their own decisions. And so it's less about, in the characterization, about I don't trust them to make decisions because they're teenage girls. And it makes more sense in the context what the conflict is for him there.
Yes.
And makes him more of a loving father who sees his children as people, although he's struggling to kind of let go of making all their decisions because he's their father.
Right, exactly. And it was actually a plot point that I had forgotten, that the mother had left. I thought she had died because that's just regular Disney
because
romance.
Disney movies, they're all dead.
They're typically dead here. They left. We have to create enough of a trauma, but at the same time, let's just kill her, not just have her own, agency of leaving the relationship for one reason or another.
Well, everybody knows that women are disposable once they fulfill their one function in life, which is to give birth.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on. Let me make sure I rewrite that down just in case I forgot.
Yeah. It's should I just patriarchy? I shook my fist in the air.
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. And so if we're gonna go back for a second about what you had said about the couple, who is the main couple, I mean, if the poster is to be believed, it's Patrick and Kat, but at the same time the action is because of Cameron's smittenness with Bianca, and there's also I always love a side couple, a B couple, and in this case, I imagine they're kind of a C- couple. But I do, as much as I read about it, where it's just like, let's pair up the people who happen to be in the thing. I'm just like, but they're so cute. I like them so much.
And I think that what this movie does really effectively is that, yes, there's an A couple, there's a B couple, there's a C- couple for sure. Michael and Mandela are definitely like the C- couple. However, every single minor character, like, not a moment is wasted. And I feel like we really understand a lot about these characters who don't show up that much.
Right.
And they don't say that much, but every little thing they do or say, like, is just perfect.
It's kind of amazing, really. And I really, not to the point where I'll actually do it, but I'm fascinated by Gabrielle Union's character, Chastity, and how there is like...
check that name, by the way.
Oh,
Chastity. Right. Sorry. Okay.
Burn. Love it. Oh, wow. Even I'm just like, oh.
Right?
But it's one of those situations where it's like, I'm watching these characters come together. And of course, there is meant to be a little bit of Bianca learning a lesson of, I want to be popular. I want this. I want that. I want to date. Her actual words, I like being adored. And I mean, who doesn't when they have the attention of so many people? I have not had that. And as an adult, I can look back at that and I'm just like, oh, I can see why it's so easy to fall back on it. But as teenage me, I was just like, yeah, wait till that beauty goes away. And then what do you have to work with? But yeah, it actually was kind of sad watching the superficial elements of her friendship with Chastity just happen, just, based off of the plot continuing. And so I'm curious. I doubt highly that there's any reference to that in the original Taming of the Shrew, but at the same time, I'm just like, but is there any elements sparking from there that came from that? And the answer is, probably not, because that would have given like some attention to a female friendship, and I don't think Shakespeare was into that as much as the farce. I don't know if farce. He does farce, but
yeah,
I don't know, Taming of the Shrew is that.
My impression is Shakespeare wasn't creating characters so much as puppets that he could make dance across the stage to kind of portray whatever thing, whatever, like maybe not morality, but whatever goal he was trying to get out there. At least in this play, I'm not a Shakespeare scholar, so
same. So it's okay. And if any Shakespeare scholars would like to chime in, you can catch us at contact@HEAMCast.com. Okay, so in the non-Shakespeare realm of it, did you were talking about who was the main couple? Did you have a particular affinity towards one versus the other? Did that even hit your radar, or was that just a plot thing? You were a romance reader, so yeah. I imagine you were a little bit more compared to me, noticing these things. So please tell me if any of that resonates with you.
So I think that what jumps out to me about the difference, for example, between Cameron and Bianca's relationship and Kat and Patrick's relationship is that, yes, Cameron and Bianca's relationship drives the plot. I think that there's an interesting arc to their relationship where they have to go past the point of just seeing the exterior of the other to having a greater understanding of who they are and perhaps how that aligns with what they want in a partner. Mm-hmm. But I also don't feel like they actually got to know each other that well in the course of the story. Like, at the beginning, Cameron is attracted to Bianca because he's infatuated with how she looks.
Yes.
And she's the it girl. And so he is attracted to her for just as superficial reasons as Bianca is attracted to Joey Donner. When Bianca realizes that how boring Joey is, suddenly she starts to say, hey, maybe I should be interested in somebody who's interested in me, not just themselves, and how I can kind of like flatter them and pay into their sort of narcissism.
Right.
I also think, though, that like Cameron, I don't know. I still don't really feel like Cameron actually knows that much about her. And look, they're still very much getting to know each other. Whereas I think that the reason that we buy into Kat and Patrick as like the main couple and the main relationship is because they hit all those romantic relationship beats. And while Cameron and Bianca's like arc generally kind of mirrors Kat and Patrick's, I feel like Kat and Patrick truly go from like not understanding that much about each other and learning more about each other throughout, and they're vulnerable with each other just in such beautiful ways. So I don't know. I mean, a lot of it is really just like how much screen time is given to developing the relationship.
Of course, of course. I mean, you only have, less than 2 hours to get a full story going on here, especially with all of these players happening, with also the plot driving it. And also, of course, the big secret has to come out eventually, which of course, it's weird is that it's like moderately anticlimactic on how a lot of the times it's in more modern movies, because the romance is such a big underlying selling point of the movie. It's typically like, oh, you mean he didn't tell you? No, it's just like, dude, what the hell? I was supposed to take this girl to prom and now I'm not. So give me my money back. And then it's less dramatic in the reveal, but at the same time, the aftermath is still enough to carry the whole thing forward, which is, I guess I want to give it credit, because I think lots of other movies use this as kind of like a template. And so it's just like, but let's definitely enhance the dramatic part of this part of it. And because it a lot of the times those stories don't have much to fall back on. So you have to really play up the emotional aspects of the betrayal.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about this is that after Kat truly knows that Patrick has like betrayed her.
Yeah.
He's actually already done his grovel at that point, which is the and in romance novel terms, just in case any of your listeners are not romance readers, the grovel is like a pretty standard part of romance novel structure, where usually a male main character has done wrong and needs to grovel to show that he is appropriately sorry and is baring his throat to the usually heroine to give her back the power. And what's interesting is the big climax here is Kat being vulnerable.
Yes, indeed.
And I think that's really interesting, because it's not so much that he did something so unforgivably terrible. It's more like the evolution of Kat's character is kind of realizing that a lot of what she's doing is as a reaction, and realizing like, hey, I need to be a little bit more vulnerable and stop pushing everybody away.
Right.
And realizing kind of she has her own journey to understanding the reality of their relationship and how much this external thing impacted her understanding of it. Like, so in a way, like, oh, you were doing this for money. It confirmed her worst beliefs about somebody can only want to be with me for this reason. Right. And through introspection, through her own journey, she realizes that, no, wait a second. No, he really does love me. He really likes me anyways. We did have a real relationship, and I can choose how to react to this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And forgive him.
Right. And that's really huge for being in high school, because, looking back on it, I think about how reactionary I was to everything. And one of the things that was kind of difficult about, rewatching in this is that, again, I was the angry teenager, and also for a period, the angry feminist. And then after a while, I don't know if this makes sense, it became exhausting. It became really exhausting just to be angry at every single thing that I perceived as a slight. And then I realized, I don't think I'm doing any favors for this type of thing. And then I actually went completely the opposite direction. And then I just became like trying to be one of the good ones. So I had to work on that as well. It's a rich tapestry of like being reactionary, and that's unfortunate. So any teenagers that are going through that right now, I feel your pain in it, and eventually you'll get to know the right way of how to trust yourself on how to react to things instead. The quote that I did, I don't like to do what people expect, and live up to their expectations. Patrick's line back to her was just like, oh, so if you are just, if you're disappointing them early, then there's like no surprises. I can't remember exactly what his thing was, but again, it's his understanding of her. And I just think it's kind of interesting. And again, that really resonated with me as well, because I'm just like, yeah, if my expectations are already low from the beginning, I won't be disappointed. I think lowly of this person, and I think lowly of this person. So that way, when they are what I think that they will be, then I won't be disappointed. But if it turns out they're slightly better, I can be pleasantly surprised.
Right. Yeah. And I think that what's really great is that this relationship, the grumpy one and the grumpy one, literally what we as the audience are meant to believe makes them so perfect for each other is that they are so unlikable and so like antagonistic to everybody that they come into contact with. And you'll notice that Patrick at the beginning is trying, when he's kind of half-heartedly trying to woo her, he just throws all this sort of like misogynistic, like, you know, like all these one-liners. He's kind of negging her.
Yeah.
He is like, first of all, this is the worst way to attract her. But he's not really seeing her as a person. He's not trying to understand her. And he starts to see her and falls in love with her grumpiness. Like the first moment that I think he really starts to be like, oh, like I actually really like her beyond just doing this for the money is when she rams Joey Donner's car. And he's like, this is hilarious. I love this. Like,
oh yeah,
she's great. Oh, like he's all of a sudden he's interested in her. And so I think that what's great about their relationship is that she is doing all of this to scare the world away. And and yes, she kind of needs to find more of a balance with not just proactively pushing everybody away. Right. She needs to just like set boundaries, but like not be so antagonistic. But he loves those things about her. He enjoys that about her. And so she is learning that she can be loved for who she is. She doesn't have to turn herself into somebody else, and she doesn't have to scare everybody away. She can just kind of be who she is, and he'll love her. And, you know, they totally bond over similar sort of coping strategies that they're using to get through life and deal with their own stuff.
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the instances where they're bonding with each other is comparing the rumors that are flying around the school for them. He's like, you know, did you really do this? Like, well, yeah, but the reason I did that is because of this. So it's like, no, it's true, but the reason I did that, there was a reason for it. I'm not just like heinous bitch who decides to, you know, punch a guy in the balls because he happened to have been near me. No, he's like, no, he was groping me. And so she, reacted accordingly. And his version of that is just like, no, I have not slept with a Spice Girl that I know of. So it's just,
or like hasn't been to prison. He still has a liver, like, you know, and there's so many great moments. Just like, speaking of like these, like every moment counting where, the other characters are approaching them so gingerly because of all of these rumors. So these rumors are adaptive. They enjoy the fact that they have built up this scary persona about them, right?
Right.
But so, okay, one of my favorite scenes, and it's such a small scene, Patrick is playing pool in a biker bar.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this guy's 18. Like, he's drinking a beer in a biker bar. I'm so confused. But so first of all, Michael and Cameron pull up on Cameron's moped. And they pull up between these, like, two motorcycles. And, like, even, like, the motorcycle guy's like, nice bike, or, like, nice ride, or something. And they go in, and Cameron smacks a matchbook out of Cameron's hand. And he's like, don't touch anything. You'll get hepatitis. And they walk back to where Patrick is playing pool. Michael casually picks up the 8-ball that some guy is just about to hit into the corner pocket.
Right.
And in the background, you see the two bikers, like one biker take the other guy's money.
Yeah.
And like they look like they're about to like start a fight. And all of this is happening like in the background. So anyways, then they go up to Patrick, who's playing pool, again, inexplicably, like in a biker bar.
Right.
They just knew he was going to be there.
Of course.
And Michael says something, or Cameron, I forget who, says something like, should you be drinking that? Alluding to the fact that they believe he doesn't have a liver, right? Is it liver that you need to process alcohol?
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, what? Because so it's like the myth around them has gotten so big. But
right.
I love that, like, every scene, no scene forgot that.
Right.
Just kind of like how naive Michael is, but also how like cool he's trying to be, like when he picks up the 8-ball, and like the scene is just so rich. The characters are so rich in every aspect of that interaction.
You're absolutely right. And going back to what you said earlier, like none of it is wasted, especially when we're talking about, you know, Joey Donner, who is supposed to be like probably the main foil, never mind people getting in their own ways, like the actual villain of the story. But even his side friends have lines, and it's interesting. Like when Michael goes to approach Joey about him being the backer for the plan of getting someone to date Kat, his friends are just like there, but they have lines, and it's interesting. And it's not just they stand there for the sake of filling out the scene. They actually, like, some things are actually like coming out of their mouths where it's just like, wow, they were actually like thoughtful with it. Or maybe I'm just giving them extra credit for that, and they delivered it well.
I think, like, you know, to talk about the screenwriters for this, and I looked up the director too, and I couldn't really find or I can't remember right now anything else notable the director did. Like, it seems like he did a lot of TV movies and stuff that I don't know if I'd seen. But the screenwriters also, it's a writing duo, 2 women, who also wrote Legally Blonde and She's the Man.
Oh, this speaks so... Okay, it's like all coming together. Please continue.
Right? And so if I think about that trio of movies, She's the Man, Legally Blonde, and 10 Things I Hate About You, they all, I think, have just a richness to like weird side characters and just like scenes where you're like, why are they like the bend and snap from Legally Blonde?
Like, you're right.
It's so random, but it's so creative and inventive, and just all the side characters are interesting. And She's the Man was another movie that I suggested we talk about. And it's another Shakespearean adaptation. Yep. So that one's based on Twelfth Night. So I think they're really interesting, and I think it is intentional, and I think that all of that texture is what kind of like elevates this in the realm of... I don't believe in like highbrow, lowbrow distinctions, really. I mean, which is something I think about a lot as a romance novel podcaster, because a lot of the stereotypes about romance novels is that they're like lowbrow and therefore like beneath our attention or our regard or the ability to sort of critically engage with them. But I think that these teen movies, you know, like with any genre, there are awesome, rich examples and some examples where you're just kind of like, all right, they phoned that in, right?
Oh, sure.
I just think this is just such a like masterful like case study in how to do like a teen movie well.
Right. The only thing it suffers from is the fact that it's completely encapsulated in its time. Because you were talking about like the outfits and what you had talked about also about, you know, pulling things out of magazines, and the color scheme for me just screamed that time. And what I really do appreciate about it, though, is that for me it really worked because I was a teenager at this time, so I feel all of this. And I actually was reading, I think the romance novels that have the person's name in it, I always get wrong. I'm just like, I'm crossing my fingers that I'm getting the person's name right, but it's Fat Chance Charlie Vega. And so I'm reading this novel that it's about a teenager. You know, she's going through all these different things, but just the references that they're making and the fact that like, they took my phone away, how am I supposed to live? And I'm like, I know that I don't want to be like, get off my lawn, but just the teenage, you know, stories of now versus, you know, the teenage stories, but there aren't cell phones, there aren't these types of things. And so for me, again, I can't even imagine a teenager now watching this teenage movie then, and if it would resonate with them at all, or if like, well, then again, I believe the 90s are making a resurgence fashion wise. So
aesthetically,
it could be
totally.
Oh my goodness.
It's like a Delia's catalog, like the fashion in this. And I feel like that I mean, like Chokers came back with the kids, like what are they, like Gen Z? I'm not saying that dismissively. I'm literally just asking, like, is that Gen Z?
Yeah, I exactly. No, I was there with you, but good clarification.
Yeah. And I think aesthetically it's coming back. I think that maybe culturally, I think the kids these days are pretty good at kind of understanding how the world was different. And I think they probably maybe look at it a little bit more like, oh, that's retro. But I think the big themes of it you know what, actually, okay. I think the big themes of it are about social belonging and these sort of calcified social structures in high school. And the correction I am making to myself in real time is I'm like, I actually feel like the kids these days, I have no actual direct knowledge of the kids these days, my just general impression based on absolutely nothing concrete is that there's been a lot of like breaking down of those somewhat calcified structures about like the cliques and about enforcing strict gender norms. And I'm sure all of this is very regional and all of this is highly kind of culturally specific, but like I feel like there has been a lot of movement in that direction with like did you see the 21 Jump Street with Channing Tatum and
Yes. Yeah.
Because there's like a whole plot line in that where they go into high school thinking it's like high school when they were in high school. And,
exactly.
And they're like doing all these behaviors that would have made them cool then. And they're like, oh, this isn't working anymore.
No.
Because the kids are all like into environmentally conscious and like not bullying and
exactly.
kind of letting go of some of these more toxic traits. And I'm not saying like all Gen Z people are perfect and have, like, oh, these things, but I feel like there's more like awareness about them.
Oh no, absolutely. And the thing is that to kind of really plop that into perspective for me, it occurred to me that I think I was so formed by stereotypes of high school before I got to high school that I was terrified of what I was walking into. And so I think I had already pinned myself in a certain way before I got there.
Who were you? What was your clique? Where were you going to fit in?
So that's I was in the advanced classes. So that's another thing, by the way. So also, if we went by Breakfast Club rules, which I did, so it was weird because I had actually didn't realize that I should have been a Brian, but I said, well, I can only be either Molly Ringwald or Ali Sheedy, so I defaulted to Ali Sheedy because I couldn't be Molly Ringwald. So I was supposed to be the basket case, as they refer to it there. It didn't occur. Oh shoot, I love this. I even limited myself in the stereotypes of the limited stereotypes of the 80s, and thank goodness, like I had friends who were in theater, and I had friends who were in band, and I did journalism, and then I was in like the other classes over there. So it was a little bit more spread out, but at the same time though, I still like steeled myself for like, well, I can't be friends with these people because they're just going to be mean to me if I'm not careful. And I wanted to think that I was more mature as a teenager, but looking back on it, I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I think we were probably similar because like I was the band theater nerd type in high school. Yeah. I was like in the chamber choir. I was in all the plays. I was what do you call it when you do the behind the scenes stuff? Before I could actually get roles in the plays, I was on stage crew or whatever it's called.
The class was stagecraft at my school, but I got you.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Like I was just like hanging out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like generally a nerd, right? But like not in the like getting stuffed into lockers. Like I feel like the 80s was full of that. Whereas I think by the late 90s, early 2000s, we had evolved into like, okay, no, you can be a nerd with a specific niche interest and the jocks are not pushing you into a locker.
Especially since I was just laughing about it with my husband. The lockers were not large enough for anyone to be stuffed into. So the second I saw that they were like 1/3 the size of an actual locker, I'm like, oh, thank God.
Well,
Okay.
that's a reflection of the economy, because now real estate values are so astronomically high. The high schools have to have smaller lockers that nobody can fit into. So really, it's the political economy of the time, Diana. But
What was I thinking?
But what is funny too, I feel like this movie is lampooning that idea of like these highly specific groups, right? Like the cowboys and the white Rastafarian, like they're so obscure. Like there's enough people who are into being cowboys in this suburb of Seattle. Like, what?
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Well, I could probably go down the line of how they formed, but that isn't exactly. I mean, if you have one person who does it, they think it's cool, and then magically you have people doing it, because this is how we get to stand out while simultaneously not standing out, which makes no sense. But I think it makes sense at the same time.
No, even this is like identity formation. You're either aligning yourself with a particular identity or creating your identity in reaction to another thing, right?
Oh, that totally makes sense. Like, if we're talking about like the lacrosse team, or I don't know. I was going for something a little bit more esoteric instead of just like the tennis team or the soccer team or the baseball team. So
chess
like
team.
Once the chess team. Oh my God. Or even like
yearbook club.
Yearbook club.
I don't know.
Totally. But I just think it's so
school.
funny. I just think it's funny that they're clubs and activities, and that's how we identified ourselves. So that's just, oh my goodness.
But yeah, so you're like, okay, I am in this club with these other people, and then because you're young and your identity is still kind of being formed, you start to say, well, we like the same things, and like I like that person, they're cool, they wear this, I'm going to start to wear this, and so there's a norming and a forming that's going. You're in corporate America, right? Norming, forming, storming, whatever this is about, like group dynamics, how they work. Like you know, it's kind of like, okay, what are we going to do here as this group, and then everybody kind of aligns and comes together.
Absolutely,
that's what happens in high school.
Oh, geez, you're right. Oh my God, I feel like I'm back in there. Whew. No, that's okay. I had put a pin in it earlier, but something that I will want to underline here. Definitely had a crush on Joseph Gordon-Levitt in my very early formative years. I think I remember watching him in Angels in the Outfield. And so as the child actor, and he's just a little bit older than me. So like, growing up, and then he was on this, and then he was on this, and then he was on Third Rock from the Sun, and I did not like his hair then. So when he's in, he had the longer hair, and I did not care for it.
Oh yeah, but in this movie he has the kind of center part like mushroom cut.
Yes.
Or it's modest. It's maybe not quite mushroom cut, but
right. But when he was in that, I'm just like, much like his own line, and I'm back in. So
back in the game.
So
can you see
enough,
how much this is in my head? Like,
yes, it is, and I appreciate that so much. It's so fantastic. So like him in that movie, and then watching him do that, and I maintain my crush on Joseph Gordon-Levitt. In fact, I follow him on Twitter, and it's such an interesting thing. But I thought that was pretty interesting. But watching it, watching teenage version of him, it just kind of like made me wince, because again, growing up and having just this like kind of heart crush little thing, my little young heart, doing that. Just watching him as a teenager, as an adult, it's just like, it's so awkward. It's like when I see, pictures of my husband when he was in the second grade on the Christmas tree when I visit my in-laws, and I'm just like, oh, that's not the man that I married, but yes, that is the person that. So it was just kind of a thing where I'm just like, get through it. And also young Heath Ledger, I'm so used to him, I'm used to him as the Joker, but that's neither here nor there. So it's just, these actors, young, you can see their eventual like talent just bursting through, and it's kind of amazing to just revisit it, because they're all very, very talented. And
yeah, my understanding, I mean, they were all around the ages of their characters at the time. And my understanding is like it was filmed over the summer, and it was almost like summer camp for the young actors. And like it sounds they were so the 20th anniversary or what, I mean, obviously that was 2 years ago at this point.
Sure.
But I feel like recently I saw something pop up on Twitter where they had a picture of them on the set. Somebody shared it, maybe Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and was just talking about like, oh, we had such a great time. Like it was so much fun. And I feel like you see that come through in the acting where you just feel like there was a lot of hijinks going on and they're all comfortable with each other. They're all very talented, but also there's a comfort in how their characters are interacting that just makes this movie such a delight to watch.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, you can hear about the behind the scenes and how it was fun, how it was professional, how it was this, but there is something that shines through in the performances. You know, some people can be competent and get it done, but I think there's a little something extra in this movie that comes through in all of their chemistries with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So you had done a couple of comments that alluded to it, but in terms of our couple, I mean, if unless you want to speak even more broadly, I think focusing on, you know, Kat and Patrick and Cameron and Bianca, and then C- couple,
Michael and Mandela.
Michael and Mandela. We don't necessarily have to focus on it, but I mean, the question we ask on this podcast is, when did they fall in love? And you know, you even said like, or even in like. So I, of course, offer all of that there. What are your first thoughts on that?
So I think that they start to see each other as their true selves, which is very important in falling in love, is even knowing the other person or starting to know them. Yeah. When Kat rams Joey Donner's car, and then I think she starts to consider him as like, oh, maybe he's a little bit more interesting than I thought, when he shows up at that concert for the band that she likes, and he actually knows some of the names of the bands. And I think that he truly does know some of these bands on his own. However, we also know that he has been coached in her musical tastes,
right,
to sort of position himself as an ideal lover in this instance. So at that point, he's still playing a part a little bit. I think that the party is this pivotal moment where we see that Patrick is a good guy in the sense that he may be doing this as a result of being asked to do it for money, but he is not going to take advantage of Kat, and he's going to treat her respectfully and take care of her. And right. I think like a big moment, so they start to reveal some of their vulnerability when they're like, you know, sitting on the swings outside, and he kind of starts to understand why she is being so rebellious, and like why do you hate Joey Donner so much, and why do you let him get to you? And there's the moment where she clearly is like feeling it, like she leans in for a kiss, and she's very drunk.
Yep.
And he knows she's drunk. And I think it's so important that even though it would further his sort of external goal to get her to go to prom with him or like date so that he can get money from Joey Donner, he chooses to he tries to reject the kiss nicely, but she of course feels very rejected. But he respects that she is drunk and that she cannot fully consent, and also I think feels a little bit guilty that he is there under false pretenses.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's like an important moment. And then, of course, when Patrick does the marching band, "I Love You, Baby," if a movie doesn't have a dance song scene, my enjoyment of it goes way down. But I think that this is another pivotal moment. And of course, then afterwards they go on this like really cute like paddle boat date and paintball date.
Yeah.
Where this is where they really start to cement their knowing of each other, and they are vulnerable. They're willing to put themselves out for each other. They mutually put themselves in a position of being vulnerable. And shoot, what did I want to say about that? when they're kissing, like, you know that scene where they kiss at the paintball place?
Yes.
It is just so, like, they are being themselves. They're having fun. They're letting go of sort of like this, the shells, that the exteriors that they are presenting to the world. And it's like so tender. He like throws the mask and he smears the paint on her face and kind of like caresses her face, and then they kiss, and then they go back to having fun.
Right. It's so playful. I love seeing them be playful with it. Again, you know, referring to them as their, you know, shells of the grumpy people that keep people away. Just watching, I mean, because, you know, you don't see him have friends, but she, you know, she has Mandela, so he
has one friend.
She has the one friend.
No,
he does. Or
he has that friend with like the spiky hair.
That's right.
I don't think he ever says anything.
No, I was just thinking about that. Like he's like in detention with him, and he's, you know, all the other things. And no, you're right. They're like biology partners, and then yeah, exactly. You're right. You're right about that. But at the same time, though, you don't see them interact too much. But that could just be the movie. That could just be who they are. But even Kat, you know, with Mandela, she's still like, you know, well, we're not going to the prom because this, and it's just like even that shows up with her as well in a manner of speaking. So yeah, watching them be, you know, playful together is just an amazing moment in the movie. And I was also, paintball, I can't get that in. The idea that he smashes a paint balloon in her hair, just, it makes me cringe right now. Just, ugh.
I feel you. Like, I'm like, ooh, and they both got curly hair. I'm like, that must be hard to get out of there. I don't know about that. Of course, later when they like come back to Kat's house, like the paint is just very artfully, like they're not covered in it, right? Yeah. Like it's just attractively like, oh, they're a little bedraggled here.
Oh, I love the movie sometimes. Just like, oh, just a little bit right here, and it's like a nice streak. So,
yeah.
No, in fact, in my notes, I agree with you that when Patrick just doesn't kiss her in that moment, it's just like, whoa, breaks here. I know you're doing something for this motivation, but at the same time, this is still a person who is in a state of vulnerability, and let's just kind of, you know, put the brakes on that. So that's one that I had noted as well. For Kat, though, one of the things that I thought was like a really solidified moment. You're watching them and you're watching the relationship progress. But I personally think it's really pinpointed when Kat and Patrick are at prom, and the way her face lights up when she finds out not only that her favorite band is there, but he was the one who did it. Mm-hmm. So it's just like this opening up of like, I have shared these things with this person, and it turns out he did this amazing thing. It's something that she didn't expect, and the fact that it happened is just, again, going back to that whole like expectations of people, and here it is happening in such a positive way, not because she had such low expectations of him, but because she just had this relationship with him and they're doing things together, and then it's just like amazing. Like, you know, going from -3 to -2 is one thing, but going from like a 5 to a 10 is just is incredible. So that's, for me, that's just something that really spoke as I was watching.
Yeah, I think that all the grand gestures that he does throughout, I think that part of what allows her to see that he was in earnest in his affection for her is that everything he did was truly personalized to her. Yeah, exactly. Especially when he got the help from Michael and Cameron. It's just like, well, these are the things that she likes and these are the things that she doesn't like. I mean, you could take that information and run with it, but he puts so much effort into it, especially for, you know, own audience expectations. Yeah, he's probably just going to do the bare minimum to get the money. Like, no, he goes for it, and it's kind of amazing. And he takes all the money that he gets and uses it to do these things that he probably wouldn't have been able to afford anyways, like bribing the marching band guy.
Yeah.
And then what's the other thing he clearly shells out? I mean, he gets her a guitar at the end. Right. So I feel like it's also important for the audience to see that he's not truly profiting. He is extorting money from Joey to do things for her that she enjoys, and like so that she can start her band when he gets her the guitar at the end.
Exactly. And yeah, in the band and the guitar, it just I mean, he even kind of alludes to it too, where he's just kind of extracting more money out of there. It's just like, well, if we're gonna go to the movies, that's gonna be this much. Don't forget the popcorn.
Did you notice the big jump between popcorn and Raisinets?
Yeah. Yeah, all of a sudden it's just like,
It's like,
yeah, that sounds about right.
15 for the movie, and then like, you know, oh, she's gonna want Raisinets, $53.
Yeah. So great. But also, now that I think about it, really nice dig at Joey too, where he's just not even paying attention. So it's just like, yeah, that's probably how much Raisinets are. Go for it.
Yeah. Can we talk about, I want to talk about like this, speaking of like just the characterization of everybody. So Joey is obviously like the baddie, the villain in all of this.
Right.
I love that he gets his comeuppance like times a million, but yeah. I feel like we also just, like, we truly, like, he's not a flat villain, right? Like, we get a little, he's a very shallow person, but we at least understand his true shallowness. Like, in the scenes with him, my favorite moment is they're all going to Bogey Lowenstein's party. And Joey says to Bianca, so you going to Joey Lowenbrow's party? And I love that they had him mispronounce the name, like, as if he, like, literally doesn't pay attention to anybody or anything that is not about him. And it's a brilliant moment of characterization. So
it is. If I will also add to that, when they're at Joey Lowenbrow's party, he's talking to Bianca. All of a sudden, one of his friends behind, like, oh my God, there's a fight. And then he just, fight! And it's just so childish, and it's perfect because he has this like facade of cool and calm, and this is what he's like, oh hey everyone, there's a fight going on, let's go look. So
yeah, no, it's true. He's delightfully shallow, and I feel like I know that like Bianca and Cameron are they're fine. They're like they're not the meat for me. They're the sandwich. Or they're the bread, the sandwich bread in this story. But Bianca also kind of gets her own growth in this story. And it's great that at the end, Cameron is not the one who defends her honor. Like, Cameron is always willing to sort of, Cameron doesn't have much bite, but he tries to defend her and stand up for her. But he gets punched by Joey. And Bianca is the one who then, like, punches Joey twice and, like, kicks him in the groin and takes him down and does it not just, you know, this is for my date, this is for my sister, and this is for me.
Yeah.
And so she also kind of gets to, and not that you can only show strength by like physically beating somebody up, but given the way Cameron is positioned as like the noble knight, you know, trying to win her affection, I think it's great that there's this turnaround here.
Right.
Yeah.
No, totally. It's really great, especially when there's a conversation afterwards between Kat and her father about like how he heard about how Bianca had stood up for himself, and it creates a really nice scene between Kat and him, because it's just like, you know, Bianca at least pretended that I could do something for her as her father, and so he's really proud of her, but at the same time he has that whole my girls are growing up situation that, you know, at the very least, Kat didn't, she's like, no, I grew up a long time ago, I don't need you, I don't need anything, which is, of course, is a total lie, which is because, you know, she wants to go to Sarah Lawrence, and there's no way she can do that on her own, even if she found some scholarships. The reality of that situation is, we'll not even, you know, open up that topic too far.
Yeah, the socioeconomic reality of their lives is a whole other topic. They're very privileged.
A little bit. And a tiny shout out to Daryl Mitchell's character of the English teacher who decided to put her in her place too. And I'm just like, oh my God, if my teacher had ever done that to me as I was an angry teacher, or as I was an angry teenager, I think I would have died 1,000 deaths. But
I love that Mr. Sorry, is it Mr. Mitchell? What's
oh shoot, it is
Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan, another great character. He truly shines in this story, and he is is just so fed up with all of these students and is so used to Kat being kind of steadfastly, anti-misogyny and, which I don't think he has a problem with. But and he calls them on kind of their white privilege and all sorts of stuff in this. But the moment where she's truly engaging with his classroom, he's like, get out. Yeah. She's like, no, I'm really looking forward to this assignment. And he knows her well enough that he's like, what is going on? No, you're playing with me. Get out of here.
Does not compute.
It's so, every classroom scene there was just hilarious. And of course, and you've got every member of one member of every social group in there represented. Right.
Oh. Absolutely. And in fact, I got confused sometimes. I'm just like, is Patrick in this class? Because I swear he wasn't before, but then he was. Oh, wait, he comes in and he's just like, what I miss? And she's like, the patriarchy, or once again. Do you know that one by heart as well?
Oh my God, I wrote it down. Hold on.
Oh yeah, here we go. Okay.
The oppressive patriarchal structures that govern our education system or something. And he's like, oh, great. And leaves.
So it was so effective. I'm like, oh, right. That actually does work for the character too. Cause I swear he wasn't in the class and then he stepped in and then leave. And then when he's there, when she's reading the poem, I'm like, I actually had to think, what is he doing there? I'm like, oh, he probably is registered in this class. He just doesn't.
He just almost never comes. Which actually, so I, when we get there, I have some rich thoughts on what happens after this movie.
Oh, interesting. Was there any, you said that, in terms of the sandwich of this movie, that Cameron and Bianca are barely a garnish, if not the bread. But, okay, fine. That was me being a little bit more poetic. But if you wanted to talk about them at all, we could. But, if I don't have a problem with focusing on Kat and Patrick as the crux. So I'm willing to say now I'm just intrigued, but if you wanted to talk about Cameron and Bianca, I want to as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I want to say about Cameron and Bianca. I guess I'm just I'm not that interested in them as a couple, Mm-hmm. And I think it's probably because Bianca in particular is a little bit younger and I think is still really figuring out, she is just getting to the point of kind of realizing that she can do things not just to be popular. And I think I'm okay, I'm glad we got that growth. But she's so vapid for half the movie.
Yes, that is right on.
And Cameron, who is very sweet and well-intentioned, there is this moment in particular where I'm like, whoa, nice guy, hashtag. Because the scene in the car after Bogey Lowenstein's party where he takes her home and he's like, oh, wow, no, she was just using me she was never actually interested in me. She was pretending to be interested in me so that she could get out of the house and wow. And he lashes out at her and it's not completely unfair, but what feels unfair about it is he starts going, I did all these things for you and blah blah blah, and I'm like, you offered to do these things, she just let you. And yeah, it's a gray area, but it was a little bit he felt like she owed him her affection.
Right. It's kind of difficult because I agree with what you were saying. I did this and I did this and I did this. And I think what's weird about in that interaction is, I stood up for you, which is just this kind of blurring of something where it's I stood up for you when people said these things about you. And for some reason I was just in the teenage mindset of just yeah, he did do all these things for you. And then as an adult me, I'm pausing. I'm just wait a minute. Hold on a second. She doesn't really owe him anything per se, but at the same time, I don't like the idea of somebody taking advantage of a person because the situation as a whole is she wanted something, she used him for it, and that was my focus. But at the same time, no, she doesn't owe him anything. So it's, I still have to grapple with that within myself. Please continue while I do that.
Well, yeah, it's the problem of, him being super nice until it becomes clear that he doesn't have access to her romantically or sexually. Right. Suddenly being real with her and being angry that the things that he has chosen to do are not being rewarded in the way that he believes they should be rewarded. You know, and so I think that that's where I'm like, I feel complicated feelings about Cameron because he is the archetype of the nice guy. His intentions are pure. He's trying to protect the purity of Bianca, like, you know.
Literally in this movie.
Yeah, and it's a bit weird, like, and again, because he's obsessed with the idea of her, he doesn't know that much about her true self either. He's lying to her. He's not a French tutor. He doesn't know any French, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I don't feel like he is I don't feel like his intentions truly are pure. I think that he wants her for the facade that she has put up. Mm-hmm. And so it's a bit of a toxic idea about, you know, what men are owed for, you know, like when they put effort into a relationship, like what they are owed. It's like the friend zoning thing that gets talked about. And I think the thing that is interesting about Cameron and Michael is that they're teenage boys scheming to make this romance happen. And I appreciate that, to kind of see not just women or girls obsessed with romance, to see these boys also sort of having that coming of age confusion and working together. Like, the fact that they're like scheming and working together is adorable. And I love it. But there's also then just that it's a patriarchy sandwich. This whole thing is a patriarchy sandwich.
Oh, very, very true. And in fact, thinking about it just a little bit more, I don't know if you've ever seen Much Ado About Nothing, the Emma Thompson, Kenneth Branagh version of it. But really quick, there is also, there's the main characters, and then there's also a side couple that, you know, you see their romance happen really quickly, and then a whole bunch of things happen. I saw incredible parallels between someone instantly smitten with her. He thinks, oh my God, she is. It turns out he thinks this, and it's part of the whole plot. And then all of a sudden it's just like, you know, turns on her instantly. So I'm just like, oh my God, Shakespeare, you have a type of just like, you know, instantly smitten. Oh my God, she has wronged me in this way. And, you know, the way is, of course, not going to be very good in hindsight. But immediately it's just like, you know, boom, done. And also I was thinking about... if we did talk about that, if we don't, it doesn't matter. But I see Cameron, I immediately assumed that their future is going to be 500 Days of Summer. Where,
oh my God.
And
another movie with a dance sequence.
Oh, I love that one so much.
It's so good.
I don't know. I don't understand why I love it so much. Totally. But yeah.
I mean, like, and now I want to go on a tangent of, it's so great because it totally captures that, like, oh my God, like, I had sex with the person that I've really wanted to, like, make things happen with for a long time. Like, it's happening. And he goes on this, like, joyous dance. Like, the whole world is in alignment with him and his feeling of conquest and success. And, like, the birds are literally, like, you know...
on his shoulder.
Yeah, like, it's just, it's a perfect encapsulation of sort of, like, that feeling inside, but then coming outside into the world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not to mention everyone is as happy as you are about it.
Yes. Even the postman is dancing and... Oh, so good.
And beautifully choreographed.
Yes. Yes. Which and I feel like then, like, that, like, it's that feeling of, like, now everything is in alignment, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is going to work out perfectly now. And actually, so here's my prediction for the future of Cameron and Bianca.
Oh, okay.
I think they're going to have a lovely summer relationship. They're going to go sailing. They're going to have their first mutual sexual encounter. Like, each of them is going to have their first sexual encounter with each other. They're going to have a great experience. They're going to learn a lot about each other, about themselves. Great formative coming of age moment. Cameron is a senior, so he's going to go to college. They're going to quickly realize that the 2-year age gap is a problem, and they're going to part as friends very respectfully and develop relationships with people who they have more in common with as they go on. But it's a great experience. they learn a lot, but it's not a forever relationship.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you with that. I think that's perfectly fair. I honestly thought that, when they get out of the high school realm, that's going to be the instance where things start to fall apart, because high school is it's a bubble. And even Kat says, like, have you seen
the unwashed miscreants who go there?
Thank you. You said, thank you, miscreants. I was going to say, was it Cretans? I couldn't remember, but
I think Cretan is also used somewhere.
It's just it is perfect to make note that it's very limited in the people, not to mention, unless you're Cameron, these are the same people you've been seeing for years over and over again. So, post high school opens up so much, and I agree with you, not to say that I'm stealing your notes, but I think it's true. I think that, their relationship, it seems very nice, bright, shiny, and they'll have some really great time together, and they will go parting ways. I think it's great that you have them parting ways in a positive way. I could see a potential, especially with his instant jealousy. He puts her up on this pedestal, and then she gets knocked down. But that's him. That's not her. So I could see that being a headbutting scenario for the eventual catalyst of their breaking up.
I'm being optimistic that they've learned some lessons. You know, they see each other a little bit more realistically. Like she did get knocked off that pedestal a bit, and I think she changed a little bit, which then is how they're able to come together in the end. But yeah, I didn't get strong together forever vibes.
No, very, very true. There's this great line in the movie The Wedding Date where this one character says, I've had you up on this pedestal since I put you up there. And I just love him having that realization that he's the one to do it. So it's I love this. I'm blaming him. I'm blaming Cameron. But no, that's not entirely fair, because she has her own faults, and he has his faults. And you're right. No, I like the optimism of yours too. So thank you for that. Okay. I'm so intrigued on the way you tease this. So please tell me.
Okay. All right. Here's again. Please recall that I feel like I should say, in romance novels, a convention of the genre is that it ends with a happily ever after, or a happily for now. And hotly contested topic in the realm of the romance genre is kind of do we believe that these people have to be happy together forever? We have to believe by the end that these people have built enough of a foundation to kind of continue on. And I know that with a lot of teen movies, it's kind of more of a Bianca Cameron situation, right? Okay, they'll probably be together for a little bit, but then I don't know. I think / I am highly influenced by the romance genre having me help imagine kind of how they're going to go on in this way, that Kat is going to go to Sarah Lawrence. And I think that we have been led to believe that Patrick we don't know anything about his college plans. We don't know anything about his life. He just seems to kind of be all over the place. And I feel like somebody just tried to break into my room. Probably this tiny human who lives with me. I believe that Patrick, the only thing we see him doing and kind of focused on is welding. I think that Patrick is going to follow Kat to New York, where Sarah Lawrence is, and he's going to get an apprenticeship as a welder. And he and Kat are going to maintain their relationship through the time she's in college. I think Kat is going to play in a band. She's going to major in women's studies until she changes her major to whatever it is you study if you want to be a sex educator. And I think that she's been rejecting her father's sort of influence. I think she's going to embrace it once she continues to kind of evolve as a person and out of that sort of angry young feminist. She's still a feminist. She's just kind of, I think, thinking about it more productively instead of just railing against the patriarchy. I think she's going to say, hey, I grew up, my dad told me about, his experience with having patients who maybe could have benefited from better sex education. And I believe this is a feminist issue to educate people about their bodies and about healthy sexual relationships and consent. And obviously also with her experience giving into peer pressure and having sex before she was really ready.
Right.
And so I think that she is going to become a badass sex educator, speaker. She's a rebel. She's going to do her own thing. It's not like she's going to be like a school sex educator. She'll like be a speaker or whatever. And her and Patrick are going to just be partners. Like they're not going to get married, but they're going to be together. And maybe they're going to be polyamorous. But they're going to be together.
Possible. That's so great. Oh no, and I really like the way you incorporated the fact that her father's influence combined with the fact that she had that experience, with Joey, and then because it is. When I watched it again, just think like, oh my God, she's going through like first her mom left and then she did this whole thing. And then that, the fact that Bianca said that, she used to be so popular and then she just stopped one day. And it's just like, I didn't really process the first time I watched it, how, deeply traumatic all of that was, to a point. Not to mention, having your boyfriend or just, the guy that you're with break up with you because you won't have sex with him because he wants to. So that's amazing, encapsulating like what we saw into the future, and it's just so nice with them.
Do you think they'll be because like I feel like they're not a little, they're countercultural. I don't think that they either of them wants to buy into the expectation of what they have to do in their life, in their relationship. But I also feel like they work together so well because of that. That's how I can see them continuing. Do you see them being together?
See, that's what's really hard, is that, for me, I just kind of kept fluctuating back and forth. And it's very easy for me to take the cynical route of just like, they're young and then they have so much to learn and they have like, so much to, learn about themselves before they go. Because, it's so funny that I have that cynicism because I did marry the guy that I met when I was 18. So I had to, for a long time, I thought that that's just what happened. And then I met all of these other types of, people with different relationships. And so I'm trying to like undo that. So it's like, I'm throwing that onto my movie people as well, despite the fact that that wasn't my own experience. But what I think is ultimately part of it is I do like the way you describe how well they work with each other, especially in the young element too. So I don't think there's anything wrong with watching them like grow into their next selves together. What's really throwing me back is the fact that she is going to be going to Sarah Lawrence. And for some reason, the idea of a long distance relationship, especially in, the early 2000s, is going to be like, do you know where Sarah Lawrence is?
It's outside of New York. When I say outside of New York City, it's like in New York, but like southern New York by Connecticut.
Got it.
South, like pretty close to New York City, but like in the burbs.
Oh, okay. Because like I was formulating something, a very, very generic version of what happens next. And so I actually am going to go a little bit darker. Ooh. In that. No, in that. Okay, so she goes off to Sarah Lawrence and she graduates, she continues through that. I think that Patrick, he made a comment that the club that she was at, he's like, I can't go there. I cannot be seen there. And it makes it seem like, there's this whole thing of just like, that's a chick club, I can't be there. But when he's there, he actually knows the bartender. Yeah. And the people are looking at him. And my first reaction was just like, oh, they're looking at him because he, quote, doesn't belong. No, I think they're looking at him because he does belong there, but like, what is he doing back? Because at some point he removed himself from the place and it was a whole thing, but then he came back and they're just like, oh my God, what is he doing back? So for me, what I think is going to happen is he is going to use that. There is a backstory that we didn't truly get, but I think what's going to happen is that he is going to be part of band promotion and also like club ownership. Like, of course, he's not going to own a club, but he can manage it, knows the bartender. He was able to get the band to show up to the prom. So clearly he has this knowledge that we're not really, in the know of what he does, but I think that's going to be what's going to happen for his future. So in terms of going dark, I think what happens is she's at Sarah Lawrence. If we're talking about real timelines, New York, 2001, that's a big traumatic thing. So I think that what's going to happen is that it's going to be kind of a twofold of she's going to be doing well at Sarah Lawrence, but at the same time, her father is going to step in and say, just like, no, I don't like you being that far away from me with that's happening. So he's going to make her come back. And that's going to be like a huge family thing that's going to require a lot of rebuilding of trust and family. But I think what was going to happen is that because of the long distance thing, they weren't going to stay together. So she's going to be at Sarah Lawrence, but that particular catalyst and her father saying, you need to come back here and finish school here, she begrudgingly comes back, but then reconnects with him. And so
all right.
There they are a couple years later out. They've had their individual experiences and they've had the opportunities to do it in an outside environment and different experiences. So this isn't about rushing back to your, first love, or in her instance, it may not be their own first loves, but just the first love that blossoms from a true place. And so they get back together again. He reinvigorates her interest in music, and he kind of introduces her to all these things because she does like pinpoint all of these different things of, I maybe this and maybe this and maybe this. And that's a big downside of I do what I want. I don't think she fully understood what it is that she wanted. And so she needs to explore that as she finishes up college, she finishes up, what she's studying, and then she's just kind of trapped where she's just like, I still don't know what it is that I want to do. So she kind of like works with him, meets all of these different people, opens up all these different experiences, and for them, it's like a continuation of their relationship, and she's going to feel lost because, for the longest time, it's just like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But seeing him being able to take off with something because he's very confident what it is, she needs to grow from that. And I think that's what's going to help her is seeing him figure out the thing that he's really good at, combined with, her own flailings is going to eventually lead her to try and fail at certain things. And it's going to be really rough for her, but eventually she's going to stumble into something. And sorry to steal it, but I really like what you had noted about her eventually becoming kind of an advocate for her own experiences, but doing, sex education. I didn't know where she was going to go, but, I didn't actually have an answer, but for the purposes of this, I really like what you said.
Steal
so
it.
I'm running with it.
Great artist steal.
Well, but at the same time, I'm going to credit where credit is due.
I appreciate it. I really like, Diana, where you went with that, because I think that where I went with it was very much like a epilogue to a romance novel. Like, okay, and sure, they'll have some problems, like whatever. Whereas you wrote an entire romance novel of like this all is prologue. 10 Things I Hate About You is prologue, and then this is a second chance romance where the conflict of the story is what happens there, right? Where that's where the growth, that's where the growing love is, where I'm like, no, they fell in love, and now they're just gonna, they'll continue growing and having challenges and whatever, but like that happens after. We don't have to see that. And I really like that you went there with that, because so first of all, we know that we keep growing after the age of 18. And
I hope so.
God, I hope so too. Even after the age of 34, a lot happens. And I think that, one of the things I think about a lot is how romance focuses on the courtship, and a lot of love and real, mature love is the stuff that you kind of keep working on day after day. It's not just courtship. It's kind of like a lot more than that. It's your whole life, and it's kind of constantly growing and evolving and maturing. And so I really like where you went there with that.
Well, thank you so much. I do have a certain, love for what you did as well, because it's just, I love the epilogue. I really do. In fact, sometimes when I'm reading, the epilogue will make or break, and I'm just like, wait, we came all this far, and that's as much as you wanted to tell me? No, but I really like the way you put it, especially, I like their future so much with yours.
I wrote a very optimistic, like, the main conflict that they needed to get over in their relationship is done. and now they'll just grow together. But I think that that's probably also unrealistic, like with 18-year-olds,
But depending on how we want to enjoy this movie, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You're right. I think that there's definitely something wrapped up for me in wanting to believe that the romance that I saw is true.
And I want you to have that on a beautiful platter in your enjoyment as it is.
My platter has a patriarchy sandwich with some Cameron and Bianca bread, a little garnish of toxic masculinity, and the meat of Kat and Patrick together forever, happily ever after.
Beautiful, wonderful. I can't love it any more than that. And so this is I would love it if the people listening here can find your podcast. Can you tell them a little bit more about it and how they can find it?
Absolutely. I would love to. So I'm the host of Shelf Love Podcast, which is ostensibly about romance novels. Although I think it's much more about using romance novels as a way to talk about identity, culture, and love. And so really the romance novels are just the text for these conversations, but they're much broader than just the text of the romance novels. But I think that, romance novels are a product of society. They're really in many ways a reflection of the things that we're thinking about and talking about and experiencing. And so I think and because they focus on relationships and love and desire and identity, they're a really rich stomping ground for kind of having those conversations. So I would love it if your listeners checked it out. You do not have to read romance novels to enjoy it, I think. It's Shelf Love, 2 words. My website is shelflovepodcast.com, and you can find me on Twitter at shelflovepod, on Instagram at shelflovepodcast. And another thing I'm working on is I'm actually doing some research, it's really about stereotypes about romance readers, but it's sort of about Bridgerton. So if you want to learn more about that, you can take part in this research, actually. You can find more information on my website, shelflovepodcast.com.
Oh, wonderful. And of course, we'll link to that in the show notes for a direct way to get to that research and your website and also your podcast. Oh, my goodness. For anyone else who wants to chime in on what we just talked about with 10 Things I Hate About You or what we think the future holds for these couples, you can reach out on Twitter and Instagram at HEAMCast, that's HEAMCAST, and then on Facebook at Happily Ever Aftermath. I noted earlier that you can email us at contact@heamcast.com, but beyond that, I have to thank you again for this amazing conversation.
This was so much fun. I think one thing that is super clear about the things that we enjoy is that they're so much more enjoyable if you can talk about them with somebody else and nerd out over them, theater nerd out over them together. So, Diana, I appreciate so much that you invited me here today to talk about this and allowed me to share 10 Things I Hate About You with you.
Oh my goodness. And also, fortunately, when we got started about this, you had thrown out some other movies. So I hope that we will soon be talking about these other ones. It'll be a surprise for our listeners, but I hope we can keep in touch about that.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. All right. So until next time, may your aftermath be happy.